It tells us the key to life. It tells us what it is all about. It tells us the thing we have to know to live effectively. And we're going to be trying to be spelling that out. We have to come at this gradually. We have to be coming back to it. We have to be able to, first of all, that we are the question. Man is the question. And it's not that we have a bunch of questions. I have a question about this, and Immaculate Conception, and purgatory. That's not the point of it. Man is the question. That is, we are essentially the searcher. As Augustine told us, we are the ones with the restless heart. We are the people who want a final fulfillment. We want the longings of the heart to get someplace. We want to reach a goal that will satisfy us. Isn't that what the question is? It's the question whether life has meaning or not. Is life meaningful or is it absurd? Is it going someplace or isn't it? Is there a graciousness about it, or is somehow the power that is in control a despot and against us? It seems to me when we say we are the question, that's what it means, something. Heidegger once said that sometime in our life we are brushed by the question. That's what the question is, it seems to me. I mean, you might have your own language for it. You might say it in a different way. It is the question, is there a definite word from the Lord? Is there a way in which I can trust life? Will my needs, my drives find a fulfillment? The language I like best, is life meaningful or is it absurd? Is, as Sartre said, man a useless passion? Useless passion, a drive that never gets any place? Or are we the question that upon our death falls into the gracious answer that we call our God? And we have to present Christianity as though it answers that. It has to come across like that. You see, the opposite of it is if people hear it and say, so what? If you present it right in this way, no one could ever say, so what? Or I don't care, or what's that got to do with me? It has to be shown in 100 different ways, in different situations, of course, different ages and situations, that it is the response to the question that we are, and it is a positive response. It comes down on the side of meaning as opposed to absurdity. It says that life can be trusted. It says that we are accepted even though in some sense we are unacceptable. We are loved even when we are unworthy, in a happier phrase. Previous phrase is from Paul Tillich. I shouldn't say that. Catholics don't understand that phrase the way Tillich did. I better withdraw that one. Tillich's phrase is that we must learn that we are accepted even though we are unacceptable, but that strikes Catholics the wrong way. I think that what we have to say is that we are loved even though we are unworthy of that love. That's an experience that we know. In fact, when to return to our own experiential base for that, isn't it one of the things that when we find out we are loved by another person, there's a part of us that says, I'm not worthy of that. I don't even understand that. Why that person would love me like that, knowing me as they do. So, better we understand that phrase better. We're loved even though we are unworthy of that. So Christianity must be shown as the answer to this question. It's interesting, Rahner one time was asked, why are you a Christian? And his answer was something like, I'm a Christian because I haven't found anything better. I remember one time I was on a panel show with a TV thing with a sparring partner of Muhammad Ali, and big fellow and so on, and that question came up, and he had a very different view, and I said that, and I thought I was going to get punched out right then. That he thought that was an inadequate answer to that question. Why are you a Christian? Well, I'm a Christian because I haven't found anything better. But there's something very helpful about that What Rahner said to fill out his answer, he said, I would give up Christianity only if I found something that would do two things for me better. One, help me understand the deepest questions of life better, to illumine my deeper experiences. And two, help me to live more effectively, more nobly, more responsibly, and more lovingly. I'd give it up only for something better. You see, it's a very pragmatic kind of statement. I would think American people ought to be able to dig that. That's one part of Rahner that maybe we can understand. It works. It's useful. We have to be able to show that Christianity does the job. You know, I mean, it's a simple thing. I mean, you might like it to think of man as a useless passion, or that it's sort of noble to keep going even though life makes no sense. But how many people can do that? I mean, I like to think when I get up in the morning and the demons are after me, that somehow it makes sense to do that. I don't think I could keep getting up unless I felt that there was a meaning in that. I often say that I think that's where faith is located, getting up in the morning. You know, that's the key. That's the key. To get up in the morning is to respond to the universal revelation, the inner word, the call of God to conscience. To get up in the morning is an affirmation that life makes sense, that it's worthwhile to struggle, that it makes sense to go to work or do your job or meet your responsibilities or try to do what counts. That's faith, response to the inner word. And that's what I think, that's the kind of positive sense of life that this Christian answer must try to show. We have to show that that's a good way to live. I know this downer stuff. None of this stuff that Christianity is just this drudgery or burden or putting up with this terrible cross or something, or that it's discordant from human nature, that it's just totally opposed to what we like and feel and are all about. I want to present it in a more harmonious way so it fits together, so that somebody says, yeah, that's just what I need to hear. That's just, I need it, the Christian message. I want to say something in my sermon Sunday morning that will help people to get up on Monday. That's what I consider to be a successful sermon. If I say something that you can talk over on a beer afterwards, that's the first criteria. So you can sit down and talk it over, and you don't feel embarrassed, and you say, yeah, it makes sense. The second criteria is, will it help you to get up on Monday, or to make sense out of the blahs on Tuesday, or keep you going with the kids? So there is this, that's, you know what I mean? That's part of what I'm trying to say, you know. I mean, I don't know how you do that to first graders, and I don't know how you do it to your 6-year-olds or whatever, but that's how I would want it to come across. Okay, second point under this. Oh, I'm going to do this properly. Religious education should respect the hierarchy of truths among Christian doctrines. That's in Article 11 of the Decree on Ecumenism, that there is such a hierarchy, which means that not all Christian doctrines are of the same importance. We don't have to teach everything to everybody. I don't have to cover all the material here today, really. I don't have to do a total Christology. The 30 seconds I did may open up a question. I remember doing a class one time, and I get frantic at the end of classes on Christology. I got to cover. I got to make sure everyone's got it neat and packaged. Wait till I get it all straight. Don't leave. Wait. Stop. Stay here. And some guy looked at me and he said, Father, trust us. Great words. I mean, to all religious educators, parents, everybody, cool it a little. Trust us. God's at work. God can save people without me. It's remarkable. Even your parents present, He can save your kids without you. I'll tell you, there's nothing better for mental health than that. That's true. That's part of the, and that's not just poor theology. I see that's good, solid theology as far as I can figure it. He does it. There's a surrender involved in that. There's a fine thing that is needed there to let go a bit. So there's a hierarchy of truths. They don't have to learn everything, but if they could learn a few things well. Now covering all the material is not the important thing. I teach a class in contemporary theology every quarter to our students at Bowling Green, and at the end of each class, we go through all this torturous theology, and I'm going, man, like crazy, and it's really, and then at the end, I always have a section that is back to the simple point. After all of that, get back to the one thing that counts. You can have all these objections to God and everything else, and then let's just get back to one thing. Belief in God means that life is meaningful and can be trusted. Talk about Christ, all the Christology, theology about it, from below, from above, opinions, counsel, calcit, and everything else. And at the end, you got to get back to the simple point that God's love is clearly manifested in Jesus of Nazareth, who is the final spokesman. Church, all the problems of church, everything else, you finally got to get back. After you do all the rest of it, you got to have some sense that that group of people is the community of people who believe in the risen Lord and manifest Him in the world. I don't care what you teach or what the class is on, somehow the essential point has to be gotten in there. You got to get back to it, no matter how complex it is. And that's some of what I mean by the hierarchy of truths. Figuring out which ones support the essential contention, the word that people have to hear, that is, that their life makes sense and they can trust the process, that they're okay despite what they feel about themselves, and that there's a community of people around where we're accepted like that. You could teach a sacrament of penance that way, couldn't you? Just as a place. What a neat thing to think we got a place in our world where acceptance is assured. Where when you go there, you hear a word of forgiveness. That is so valuable. You might tell the person next to you, they might not forgive you. But that outward sign that there is the God who forgives us is so valuable. Our world needs it. And so you see, everything that I'm saying, you could get back to this one kind of simple point. Life makes sense, can be trusted, I'm okay, self-acceptance, all the different ways I'm trying to say it. Focuses back on it. And then you can't say, I don't care. I don't think you can say, I don't care to the sacrament of penance in that sense. Nobody can say it's not good to have a forum around where there's forgiveness assured. I don't care who they are. I don't care what they believe. No one can say that. Being forgiven's too important to us. Every human being. I'm trying to show you by example how I would try to tap in. I don't know how to do it for fourth graders, but that's the direction I would go. Now, the neat thing now. We need to work out, number 3, we need to work out short creeds for ourselves and those we teach based on age and culture. Essentially, we live in an age of packaged advertising, quick summaries. We can't just pretend like that world isn't there. I don't want to get into the process of trivialization, by which I mean taking great ideas and making them insignificant. We can't do that. But if we got a message, we got to be able to package it. We need to be able to say in a short way what we believe as Christians. And it's going to sound different in Japan from the United States. It's got to be different for college students from first graders. It may have to be different for men than women in our culture. But we need short creeds that will capsulize it for ourselves. Let me know what it is I hold in a short way, and so I can use it in teaching the people that surround me. Understand, we need a way of saying, as a Christian, we believe, and saying it in a way that taps people's experience, right, and relates that experience to the Christian symbol system. You cannot, I go back to my premises before, I would think that it is advisable to begin with some human experience, that it is advisable not to presume that people know what you mean by the word God, that there are really three essential doctrines in Christianity that ought to appear in a creed: the Trinity, the Incarnation, and grace. Trinity, Incarnation, and grace. But that those three could somehow maybe be subsumed under the notion of self-communication. Self-communication. That is, God is the one who wants to give of himself. He gives himself into the human heart. Insofar as he does that, we call him the Spirit. And God wants to give himself historically, and insofar as he has done that, we speak of the incarnation in the presence of God in Jesus of Nazareth. Now, I'm starting to give content to this. Starting to say what it is that I think this packaged answer is to the longings of the heart. Trinity, Incarnation, and grace. But a self-communication of God, both in the heart and in history. Now, my friends, I believe that it really is helpful, no end, to be able to work out a creed for oneself. I'm going to take the time to tell you a process that I often use. I'm not going to do the process because we can't go through it, but I think it's valuable, and you might just want to note the steps down and do it on your own when you have time to meditate. When I do a full thing on this finding out of the creed, this may sound strange to you, and a model for this is Teilhard de Chardin in his little book, How I Believe. It won't be spelled out in there, but you will. Once you hear what I say and read that book, it will go together. Little paperback, Teilhard de Chardin, How I Believe. 3-step process that I would envision in figuring out this creed. 1, I would begin with my primary negative experience of life. That is the thing that bugs me most, or what I feel is the greatest problem in life. It might be that I am threatened by absurdity, or that I have an abiding sense of my own unworthiness, or that there's no end to the drive to understand, or that I can't find the ideal lover that I'm looking for. Any number of things, but those are the kind of things that I would have in mind, a primary negative experience in life. That I'm threatened by absurdity, threatened by a lack of love, threatened by a lack of knowledge, threatened by insecurity, by anxiety. Okay? Look for that. Then, if you're getting up in the morning, then I suggest that some way you have found a way to manage that negativity. You have some faith. Figure out what it is. How do you overcome that? So if I am threatened by absurdity, that's my major thing. I would say that my faith is that despite all of the absurdity, despite all the poverty, despite Dachau and Auschwitz, despite all of the mess our world is in, somehow I think it makes sense. That's the positive step. That's what I would mean by faith. That's what I mean by faith. Faith is positively overcoming the negativity in life. I don't think you see that I sense that life is this mixture of positive and negative. The people who heard me last time probably got a strong sense of that. I don't buy this easy grace and cheap joy business. I believe that life has a harshness and hardness about it, that original sin is a true doctrine, that Jesus is the model when he says, Father, why have you forsaken me? When he goes to his death in darkness, and he says, into your hands I commend my spirit. In other words, I think all of that must be taken seriously, so that faith is a triumph over that negativity. And I'm saying it's intuitive. I mean, I wake up, I get up in the morning, I don't know why I do. I don't know where I get the power to do it. I don't know. I didn't figure it out. I don't know why I think the world makes sense despite all of the evil statistics. I didn't figure it out. I don't know that someone told it to me. That's just what I feel. When someone comes in my room and pours out their heart to me, and I walk out of the room, I often say to them, stick with it. Hang in there. I'm with you. And I tell you the truth, I don't feel phony saying it. I don't ever feel inauthentic in saying it. It may sound trite to somebody else. I can't help it. To me, it makes all the sense in the world, and I say it to people, hang in there. That's my statement of my faith, that the world makes sense despite all of the absurdity that threatens us. That's the second step, to discover one's positive faith as the overcoming of the negativity. You know, there's nothing about God yet, nothing about Christ or the church or the sacraments. That is faith. Rahner calls that transcendental faith. Lonergan and Attila call it faith. Whatever, I'm sticking with that word. Unimportant who said it or what. Next step, third step, is to link that faith with the Christian symbol system. What about Christianity correlates with that? What about my tradition, my belief, would allow me to affirm that, would refocus it, would give me a sense that it's right and correct, would give me language? Suppose someone says to me, why did you say that to me, hang in there? Why do you think that? I'm not without words. Know what I say? I'll tell you why I think you should do that, because there was one man who took on all the absurdity in the world, like being rejected by his friends and executed as a criminal when he was a good man, and in doing that, took on all that absurdity, was obedient to the will of his Father, and he has been raised to life. That's why I say that, because there's one model, there's one guy who did it and showed that it can be done. He showed the pattern of human existence. He showed the key to life. That's what I say. I'm not without words. I don't think a Christian should be without words at that time. I mean, well, there's obviously a lot of times when we are, but I mean, there should be some way of linking our primary intuitions, or our faith as I'm calling it, with the Christian symbol system. And, my friends, when you've done that, then it rings true. You see the difference? The other way most of us came at it chronologically was we were given a symbol system. We had it. Our parents told us about it. There it was, as a package, as it were. And we took it, lived with it, found enlightenment in it, whatever. But there was no assurance that we had appropriated it. There's elements of it that we never did appropriate. I can bet on it. I'll bet there's nobody here who finds the phrase, he descended into hell, helpful on Monday morning and getting up. That's what I would guess. I mean, there's elements in our creed that simply most people have not existentially taken hold of. It doesn't make any difference to them. We could drop it tomorrow and they wouldn't care. It wouldn't make any difference in how they live their lives. And that's necessary. That's true. But I'm saying much of that creed we have not appropriated. But that's chronologically how it worked. Now, I'm suggesting as an adult there's another way to go about it. Start the other direction. Find out what it is you really do have in your heart that is true, that you really grab onto and that keeps you going during the week. Find out what it is. Then figure out how to relate that to the Christian tradition. And then when you say those Christian words, they will grow out of conviction. You won't just say it because your mother told you, or because it's in the book, or because you're supposed to teach it to 8th graders. Then you're saying things that, and you can tell the difference, can't you? I mean, you can tell in preaching. You can tell when preachers are saying something that they are convinced of that grows out of reflection and connects in with their experience. So, that's the importance of this creed, of doing it. Is that clear? I hope it is. I want to give people, let's take some quiet time now. I'd like people to try to write it down. Now, let's try this. Write one either for yourself or for the grade that you're interested in teaching. Try it either way. One that makes sense for you, clicks in with your experience, or how would you say it? If you teach the 3rd grade, how would you tell them? Boy, think of your class next time. You really got a hold of it. Okay, let's take a couple minutes to do it. It won't be long enough, but it's a way of initiating you into the process. Well, silence in here if we could. Thinking time. Again, I presume people can sense the value of that. Being able to say in a short way, someone says, why are you a Christian? What does it mean to be a Christian? What do you Christians believe? Very helpful to be able to say it. But most of all, in our work as parents, teachers, anything like that, to be able to get back to the vital point so that people are not lost. See, Christianity appears to people as a vague mass of things, doctrines and rules and rituals. It's all so blurry. Our kids come out of our schools with it blurry. That's where the back to the basics people are right. We ought to have a focus for them. We ought to be able to come out of our programs and say, yes, at least I know this is what Christians hold. This is what the faith is all about. Now, let me go through these other points here. I want to finish strong. Our last energies now for 12 minutes. I want to go do it. Oh, the creeds. Yeah, I was trying to compose one for preschool kids. I took on the toughest challenge. So I composed one. It's not clear to me now. I lost it. It's, I want to be loved even when I'm bad, and God always loves me. Not too bad for someone who doesn't work with preschool kids, you know. That's my preschool one. Now for my first grade one. No, I'm not going through all that. Just to show you, I have written one here, didn't I, in the thing, example. And you can see it from the language that I use. The mystery that supports and draws us is gracious or kind and speaks to us through Jesus and the promptings of our heart. That's an adult creed. That's the kind, I'd write that one for this group here. That's my offering to you. The mystery that supports and draws us. There's two ideas. That there's a power in my life that is the source of my energy that is surprising to me. I don't control my life. And that I got these infinite drives, and I believe that there's a goal to them. So the two words I so often use for God are source and goal. The question is the source and goal for me or against me? And I say here, the mystery that supports and draws us is gracious, benign, kindly with me. And now you see the Trinitarian thing. Two ways. Speaks to us in two ways. Through the promptings of our heart, that's the Spirit within me, and through Jesus of Nazareth historically. So that's my own attempt at a short creed for an educated adult audience in the Western world. See if it makes it or not, I don't know. Okay, now, when we get back now to what it says in the Bible, what it says in the doctrines, the creeds that we have, remember, those things are not divorced from experience. When you teach them to people, you're not teaching them as a foreign matter. You don't take it and pour it into people's heads as though they have no relationship to who they are or what they are about. They aren't, and I'll tell you why they aren't, because they originated in human experience. That's where we got the Scriptures and the doctrines to begin with. They didn't fall down from the sky. There was a community of people who experienced Jesus of Nazareth and who lived out his teachings, who celebrated at liturgy and used it to teach and to preach and to solve problems, who one day out of that vast, rich experience decided to verbalize it, to get it down into a form that would continue to be the norm for the whole of the Christian history. That's what we know as the New Testament. But you see, it's experiential already. It grows out of experience, the experience of the early community. Where do the doctrines come? The Pope doesn't make them up out of his head. They're an attempt by the church as a whole to summarize what it believes at a given point in history. Yeah, that's what it is. It's an attempt of the church to give verbalization to the common faith of the group. So they grow out of experience to begin with. They were the way the people tried to say what it was that was going on with them, what their faith was. And so there's no reason at all why they cannot be taught as related to experience. Take the resurrection, one example, a Rahnerian type example. How do you preach about the resurrection and talk about the resurrection? Rahner says, you begin with the longings of the human heart for final purpose to our lives. One thing we want to know is that all our effort is not down the drain, that it's worthwhile, that we will endure somehow, that all that I am about and am constructing is of permanent validity. And Rahner says the doctrine of resurrection simply tells us that we can believe what we desperately hope in. Resurrection is not a foreign doctrine of a guy coming out of a rock and out of a tomb. Resurrection needs to be presented as a validation of our deepest longings, that life can be trusted, that I will reach final fulfillment. That's an example of the way they come together. That's how the apostles experienced resurrection. They were down, beaten. The cause seemed to be lost, and here it wasn't. It kept going. That's the good news. The Lord is risen, they say. It was experiential then. It's got to be experiential now. And I don't care who tells you, well, you can't begin an experience because then you will end up in a mere humanism. That's not true. You end up in a mere humanism because you stop short, because you don't go deep enough, because you won't relate experience to doctrine. Not you, but people in generally. That's where the mere humanism will come in. So that's an example of trying to say how of getting this understanding of the Scripture and the doctrines. Something about intellectual honesty. I feel when we're in the classroom we have to have that. We have to feel confident, and we don't have to think we have all the answers. Please, I didn't say this in this session, don't anyone walk out and say, geez, I feel depressed because all those new ideas or something. Right? It's too much or overwhelming. Nobody's got all the answers. There's no theologian in the world can solve all the theoretical problems, so we can forget it in that sense. We got to know all we can know, but we can rest assured with that pragmatic kind of argument. It works. It lights up life. You got a better way? To the 16-year-old kid? You know, do you really have a better way that will help you to understand yourself, your experience, and will help you to live more effectively and nobly? You may think he does at 16, but it would certainly be good to challenge it, wouldn't it? You know, that is there's an intellectual honesty. You know what I tell the people that want to become Catholics, and they say, well, I got a problem with a certain doctrine. Can we get to this point? Will you say that you remain open to the possibility that someday that doctrine might mean something to you? Yes, I'm not talking about whether they believe Jesus is Lord or not, you know. I mean, I'm talking about as you move a little bit further away from the center, you know, of the core. But you see, it's a question of a very pragmatic thing. No one has appropriated all the doctrines of Christianity. I don't care who they are. The question is, will you stay open to the possibility that the Immaculate Conception can mean something to you someday, even if it doesn't now, or the Assumption, or the notions of purgatory, or any of those other doctrines that cause people trouble? Can you stay open? And that's enough for the kids we teach. You know, okay, you don't get anything out of it now, maybe someday you will. I believe that's intellectually honest. The final point here is important, and I wish I had more time to deal with it, and it relates to how we deal with the kids, and that is this sense of being rooted in our tradition, being confident of the particular in our lives, of saying, yes, I'm a Catholic and that's the way it is, but I stay open to truth and goodness wherever I may find it. That is a neat place to be. You know, I know so many priests, if they just could get to that place, could lead a more relaxed kind of life. So many religious educators, so that they were, you see, it's two things, confident of the tradition, assured that Jesus has the key to life, assured that he's the final prophet, but also open to truth and goodness wherever it may be found around me. Isn't that a neat way to be? I used to give talks to high schools and suggest they hire people like that to walk up and down the halls. And we put on them a sign, RA, standing for Rooted Adult. And these rooted adults are confident of their position. They're Catholics, and they hold it. And a kid comes up and challenges it, and they say, yeah, that's what I believe, and I'll tell you it works for me too, and yes, I believe that. But at the same time, who are confident enough to listen to what the kid is saying, to dialogue, to see if he can learn from the youngster. See? This is a great thing. Hire one rooted adult to be around. Then you avoid the marshmallow effect. Then we stand for something. You see, it's back to my primary problem in the whole thing. There is this vague sense of things. And there's this sense of relativity and insecurity. That is a real problem. We have to deal with it. It's not good enough anymore just to say, live with complexity. Suffer through the pluralism. Live with the gray areas. It's not enough. We need something to avoid that vagueness and marshmallow effect. We need people who are committed and understand why they're committed, who can summarize their faith for people, put it into a few words that they can understand, who are willing to stand for that and live for it, and at the same time are quietly confident so they can listen and learn from the other people, be open to the truth wherever they may find it, assimilate that into their own view, and become more fully human beings. I've enjoyed my time here. People have been extremely generous in their facial responses to me. I appreciate the last 12 minutes of energy expenditure especially. I feel like I have more things to say and I got to cover them, but I have to let go a bit.